Hi everyone, second video of the day. Firstly, I just want to thank everyone that's liked, watched and subscribed. It's, for the first day, actually means a lot. I just wanted to go through what I went through with depression, because a lot of people are going to watch the first video and be like, oh, she's gone through depression, but does she actually know what it is? What you go through. But let's be honest, there is so many different ways that depression and anxiety can affect someone. So I thought I'd just make a short video, not too long, because people don't want to be watching me all night. So I've been through 3 lots of depression, but there's one particular time that I want to talk about, which was May last year now, because we're in January. So last year, started off with anxiety for the theory test, which I was going for. I was doing driving lessons and everything else. Obviously everyone gets really nervous. They're scared they're going to fail. It just probably one of the worst experiences of my life, other than giving birth. So with the anxiety, it affects mainly my chest. So not so much panic attacks, but to the point where my chest is tight. It feels like something very heavy is sitting on my chest. I get the shakes, and tend to get really dehydrated. So I noticed that was coming along, but put it all down to obviously the theory test. I did pass first time, but the anxiety doesn't just go away because you've obviously achieved what brought on the anxiety. So that was in April, and the anxiety obviously stayed. I was controlling it, so to speak. Everyday life, working, children, running a house, everyday things, obviously, with anxiety seems that little bit tougher, that, you know, oh my God, what if this doesn't go to plan? And oh my God, what if that doesn't go to plan? And you start freaking out over minimal things that some people, not all people, but some people don't quite understand why you're feeling that type of way about something which to them is so minimal. So that was that. And then I decided to book my test, which my friends, obviously, they were like, yeah, just do it, you know, you'll be fine, you're going to pass. So I did that, and obviously that brought on anxiety because of the wait for the test. So I booked in lots of driving lessons and everything else. Then comes to, I think, a week before my test was due. Went for a driving lesson, it didn't go great. Obviously that contributed then. Oh my God, I'm going to fail. I've just paid this money for a test. And then I think it was 2 or 3 days later after actually booking the test, I then started having vomiting and diarrhea, which I actually thought was a sickness bug. Couldn't really eat or drink anything. You know, everything that I ate was either coming up or going through. Got to my test day, and I was still being sick. And I thought, I can't cancel now. I don't want to rebook because I'll have to go through all this anxiety again. I might as well just get it done. So basically I threw up that morning. My test was at 11, so I threw up 2 minutes before I got into the car. And then managed to get through the test. I don't even know how, but I did. And I passed. I don't know how I did that either. But the vomiting and the diarrhea and the shakes and the uncontrollable sweating, so I could be freezing cold but yet still sweat, my palms were sweating, everything. And I thought, this is strange, I'm going to go to the doctors. So went to the doctors, explained everything that was going on, and it turned out that I had acute anxiety, which was then affecting not just my chest and the dehydration, but obviously my stomach, the sweating, the severe shaking to the point where it looked like I was actually shivering. So wanted to put me on, I can't think what they were called, but pills, whereas GPs obviously tend to put you on these pills to try and help you. So took the pills, started taking them, wasn't feeling any better, but then also came the struggling to get out of bed, one day I had a lack of appetite, so I didn't eat anything, and the next day I would be, anything in front of me was just, I was shoving in my face. So went back to the GP after, I think it was a week. I was signed off of work. I was then put on antidepressants, which were supposed to help. And I think 2 days into taking them, I felt worse than I had before. So I couldn't get out of the bed. I didn't want to do anything. I didn't want to talk to anyone. I just wanted to be by myself. Obviously, I have a small child, so it was school runs and things like that, which was difficult. But I think as a mum, knowing that a young child is depending on you, you find that strength to do that. You find the strength to get up. You find the strength to do that school run. But as soon as the school run was done, I was coming home, obviously because I was still signed off of work, and I was laying on the sofa and I wouldn't move. Even going to the loo was an effort. And then it got to day 3 where I really didn't feel well. The mood swings were out of this world. So it was 1 second I'd be absolutely fine, to the next second I'd be crying, to the next second I would get really frustrated over something trivial, but at the time obviously seemed a lot worse than what it was. When I look back on it now, it wasn't something to actually get emotional about or frustrated about. So I then ended up going back to the doctors. They then tried me on another set of antibiotics, another set of antidepressants, which also didn't work. So it was the same symptoms. Couldn't get out of the bed, the severe change in appetite, the mood swings, the feeling helpless in yourself, feeling a failure in yourself, which wasn't great. So I made the decision to come off of them. I didn't want to be on them. I had to find a way to get through this myself without pills. There was also the offer of cognitive therapy, which is basically a therapist calls you, asks you, I think it's 10 questions, if I remember rightly, 5 on one sheet on a scale of 1 to 5, I think it is, and then another sheet is a scale of 1 to 10, and they ask you questions such as, have you felt to hurt yourself? Are you doing things that you would normally do? Are you still finding pleasure in the things that you would normally find pleasure in, etc., etc.? The waiting list for that was 3.5 months on the NHS. So I was basically by myself, trying to deal with what was going on. No medication, no therapy, just day to day. And it was hard, and it was the energy that I found to look after my son. I don't know how I did it. And obviously my friends were messaging me, are you okay? And I didn't want to talk to no one, but at the same time I was feeling really lonely, and it was like you're continuously battling with yourself. So I think we were about 2 months in, and I had to make a decision to go back to work. So I had a date in my head, which was obviously a positive thing because I'm looking to go back to work, which was great. But all the symptoms were still there. All the stomach trouble, the sweating, the shakes, everything else was still there. So I went back to the GP again, told him I didn't want antidepressants. The cognitive therapy at that point would still be about 2 months away. So I basically made the choice to go back to work. I think it was 3 or 4 weeks after that, and I had 3 or 4 weeks to mentally prepare myself to go back to work, which I think is a positive thing because I had something to work towards. It doesn't work for everybody. It's not going to work for everybody, but I had to work towards something. I had to find the strength to pick myself up and get myself back to normal, if you want to call it normal, because no one's normal. So what I started to do was thinking to myself, right, if I get up in the morning and I go to the toilet, that's a positive. If I do the school run, that's a positive. If I go to the shop after the school run, that's a positive, because what I was tending to do was do the school run, come home, stay at home all day because of the anxiety. And if I did have to go out, it would be blaring music into my ears just to take my mind off of everything. The paranoia of everyone looking at me a different way was a massive factor. But then everybody's just seeing you as a person, but it's your anxiety that's making you think a different way. So that's what I started to do. I started to, my day-to-day routine that would be normal in any other circumstance, I thought as a positive. So to clean the house, right, you've done one room, great. If you haven't done the rest of the house, it don't matter, but you've done one room, so that's great. Putting a load of washing on, brilliant. Like I said, going from the school to the shop, then coming home, perfect. Getting up and doing little jobs like wiping down the kitchen sides, coming to sit back down. Things like that to slowly get myself back to where I need to be. And it did work. I did go back to work and I was still anxious and I was still suffering with some of the symptoms. But the support network I had around me, luckily enough, I've got 3 really good friends that, you know, checked on me, made sure I was all right. If things got a little bit too much and my anxiety was playing up, I could step outside for 5 minutes and gather myself and then go back in. And it's them people that probably, and my manager, that probably made it just that little bit easier to go back to work. And now I've been back to work since August. Some anxiety, but not much that I can't deal with. And yeah, that's probably the worst case that I've had of depression. I was off of work for 3 months. And in them 3 months, it really was tough. And it was something that I pray won't happen again. But with depression, everybody knows it just lays dormant and then could be the slightest little thing that triggers it off. But yeah, that was me. That was my experience. And I just want to let everybody know that there is light at the end of the tunnel. There is something. You know, this blaring music into your ears might not work for you. You know, giving yourself a date to go back to work, to go back to school, you know, it might not work for you. But that is an option. Give yourself praise for the things that you do, like getting up at the time you set your alarm, or if you can't, then getting up 15 minutes after your alarm goes off rather than half an hour. Make sure you give yourself praise. Make sure you feel like you've done something positive that day, and it will help you. Right, I'm going to shut up now and leave you all alone. Like I said, thank you all for subscribing, liking, sharing. It means the world to me because, as I said in my previous video, this is a very big topic I'm passionate about. I'm hoping that, you know, I'll get more likes, more shares. People will watch my videos, and sometimes I'm hoping that someone out there might use a technique that I've used and it has worked for them, or it has made them feel better. You probably won't see a video now for maybe a day or so, due to work and children and housework and everything else. But just give yourself praise. Make sure you always give yourself praise because you are doing an amazing job. You really are, and you will get there. And when you do, you're going to look back like I do and just think, wow, I did that. I made it through all of that and I'm sitting here now. So, yeah, thanks again, everybody, and I'll see you soon.